Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Recently, Hugh Jackman did another big interview about his future as Wolverine in the MCU movies and revealed some big changes in the way he's approaching the character. It confirms a couple big theories from Deadpool and Wolverine in what's going on with Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, and even more important, what Marvel is doing with Wolverine after Secret Wars in the new line of rebooted X-Men movies with younger actors during Marvel Phase 7 and going forward after that. The other good news is we have CCXP this week. We're supposed to get a whole bunch of trailers. We're also supposed to see an Avengers Doomsday trailer of some kind with Avatar 3 in a couple weeks too. Of course, I will do all the videos for whatever they do wind up releasing. But I do think that first teaser trailer is supposed to be more of a vibes trailer with Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom under the mask, and it'll mostly be like the first Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame teaser trailers, where they didn't really show you anything from the actual movies, so just do not expect a lot from that first big trailer. The whole reason why Hugh Jackman was talking so much about the future of Wolverine was that Graham Norton asked him a bunch of Marvel questions in the middle of a longer discussion about one of the other movies that he just made. Trying to be cheeky, asking him if he'd hung up his claws for good, the way the interviewers try to get stuff out of people, how each time someone asked him about doing more Wolverine movies, more Marvel movies, Hugh Jackman always had to lie and say, "No way, never again." He actually joked that he'd said that 6 or 7 times in the last couple of years, like, "No, never again, never coming back." What was different about this time is that Hugh Jackman said that he had gotten tired of lying, like he wasn't going to be lying about this anymore, saying that he had spent so many years after the Logan movie saying that he was done and never coming back. Patrick Stewart also said the same thing too after Logan was released, only to then both of them turn around and say yes to coming back in Deadpool and Wolverine, Patrick Stewart coming back multiple times in other Marvel movies. In this past week, Hugh Jackman finally admitted that he would never say no to coming back again for more movies, and this was just a blanket yes to any Marvel movies Kevin Feige wanted him in, coming back in everything that they wanted him to do going forward. If Marvel wants to use Hugh Jackman in other movies besides the upcoming X-Men reboot movie, I'm totally fine with that. There are plenty of big ideas from the comics that they never got around to doing in the past for legal reasons, like do a Hulk versus Wolverine movie, please give that to us. Most of the talk right now is just centered around Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars for obvious reasons, because those are the closest, most relevant movies where it would make sense for his version of Wolverine to show up after Deadpool and Wolverine. But you have to remember that Hugh Jackman just said that he'd be down to come back for anything, which also includes everything coming after Secret Wars, Marvel Phase 7, the new era of X-Men related movies, because that's basically what they're focusing on. X-Men, mutants, more cosmic stuff, but Hugh Jackman relevant to a lot of that stuff.
The plans for Wolverine and Deadpool will always be where can we get them and how quickly and how much. Yeah. Now, we know very much what the grand storyline is leading up to Secret Wars, but also beyond. And you already mentioned one of them, which is X-Men.
Here's the thing about this too. Kevin Feige had already explained what their big plan for the Wolverine character was, but this was long before Deadpool and Wolverine was released and Hugh Jackman came back as this character, so I think the plans have changed since then. What he said a couple years ago, Kevin Feige, is that Marvel wasn't going to include any version of Wolverine during the new 2028 X-Men movie that Jake Schreier is working on right now, and Marvel had planned for Avengers Secret Wars to be the actual final Hugh Jackman Wolverine movie. After that, they would wait a number of years before recasting a younger version of Wolverine, and then, as you would expect, include him in the Marvel Phase 8 movies by that point, maybe tail end Marvel Phase 7. So we're talking several years after Secret Wars. Both to pay honor to Hugh Jackman for his versions, like not immediately recasting Iron Man after they tried to kill Robert Downey Jr. off during Avengers Endgame, like just give it a number of years before we figure out what we're going to do with Iron Man going forward. Yes, someday Marvel will recast Iron Man with a completely different version of Tony Stark, different actor, but it's going to be a long time before that happens. One of the other reasonings in not including any version of Wolverine in the 2028 X-Men reboot movie was to avoid the trap that the original X-Men movies fell into, where the Wolverine character became so popular, eventually at a certain point, those movies started relying on him too much and started focusing way more on him than the rest of the team itself. This is actually what the Anchor Beings joke in Deadpool and Wolverine was referencing, that the death of their most popular character that was holding up their franchise died caused the entire universe, the story universe of X-Men movies, to wither and die on the vine. This is also why the people who made X-Men 97 Season 1 said there wasn't a ton of Wolverine in those Season 1 episodes, because they wanted the story to focus on the whole team, not just Wolverine. Now it sounds like after Deadpool and Wolverine, what's changed in the way that Hugh Jackman is talking about it, the way it's changed. Kevin Feige's new plan is to bring Hugh Jackman's Wolverine back for even more and delay a new younger recast Wolverine for even longer. So it seems like for the foreseeable future, Hugh Jackman and Daphne Keane, obviously we have to remember X-23, also a version of Wolverine, are going to be the only versions of Wolverine Marvel will be using outside of maybe like one-off jokes like Henry Cavill type of stuff. Making the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, you'll do this until you're 90 joke even more prophetic. Even though when they actually shot that scene and filmed that joke, that was not the original plan. Like, he was basically just calling the shot Babe Ruth style, like, this is going to be so popular that they will make you come back until you're 90.
There was just silence on the end of the phone. I said, if you'll have me, I want to do this movie. I know in my gut.
Hugh Jackman did address this himself too, like the whole 90 years old joke, saying that Marvel and Disney had enough scans of his body through all the movies that he'd done for them to completely recreate him with AI if they wanted. But I think this was meant to be more tongue-in-cheek. Like, he wasn't saying, yes, please do this now. No, he's saying that at a certain point, if he becomes too old or something happens to him, that they could do something like this, and he might be willing to sign a contract to let them do it for the right price. But honestly, if you think about it, I don't think it's ever going to come to that, because if you remember, he played the old man Logan during Deadpool and Wolverine. They actually had to add a bunch of old age makeup on him to make him look way older. He's still in his 50s right now. That's not that old. Just imagine Hugh Jackman aging into that naturally so that eventually he becomes the old man Logan of the MCU. He could be 80 to 90 years old and that could still make sense. And when I say Marvel will wait even longer now to recast a younger Wolverine, that means more like 10 years instead of 3 years. So yes, at a certain point we will see a younger version of Wolverine running around alongside Daphne Keane coming back as X-23, because she is still extremely young and said that she loves coming back as long as the story makes sense and as long as they want her. So she'll just keep coming back for like the next 20, 30, 40 years as long as they want her back. But she's not meant to replace Hugh Jackman's Wolverine or anything like that. She's just there in addition to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and whoever this new recast version that will show up in like 10, 15 years. What I think the Russos are doing right now with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars is they're trying to be as efficient as possible with all the characters they're bringing back. So obviously we talk about Deadpool, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, X-Men related characters. We already have a ton of X-Men they announced that are coming back, and it seems like they're just using the same X-Men universe that Monica Rambeau wound up in at the end of the Marvels movie to say that they all come from that universe. When you rewatch Deadpool and Wolverine, they actually tried to explain when they made that movie that was meant to be the original main X-Men universe, which raised a whole bunch of other questions too, because remember, the Wolverine that winds up in that universe at the end of the movie, living with Deadpool and Daphne Keane, are from different time periods. So at this point in the timeline, at the end of that movie, there are multiple versions of Wolverine running around, like multiple Hugh Jackman Wolverines. What Marvel said about the X-Men universe that Monica Rambeau wound up in is that it's different from the original Fox X-Men universe, like a different group of characters that look a little bit different. They're more comic book accurate to explain why they show up wearing more comic book accurate suits. Channing Tatum's Gambit, for instance, also supposed to be part of that X-Men team. So it's very similar to the original X-Men movies that they wound up in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, but not the exact same. What I think the Russos are going to wind up doing, though, for Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars is hand-wave past a lot of those technicalities so they can just say that Deadpool, Wolverine, X-23, if she also comes back too, which she probably will for at least Secret Wars, will all come from the same Earth that the main X-Men that we see in the Chair Watch video come from. Just so they don't have to explain 1,000 different universes, even though, if you're talking about Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars, there are thousands and thousands of universes that get combined by that end into the Secret Wars that he just wrote.
Extra dimensional, what does that mean?
Wow. It's a cool ship.
There was a new report recently that made it sound like what the Russos are going to do for Battleworld is they'll just say that the X-Men universe, the Fantastic Four's universe, and the MCU will collide in an incursion at the end of Avengers Doomsday, and that will form Battleworld. There'll have to be a little bit of hand-waving and portal jumping, multiverse combining to explain how Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man come from their universes, but for the most part, it does sound like Battleworld is just going to be a combination of a couple different worlds, not thousands of different worlds. When Deadpool and Wolverine was released, I believe the original plan was to just bring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine back for Secret Wars. Now it sounds like they want to include them in some small cameo during Avengers Doomsday, but I do not believe whatever their story winds up being, they will be very big characters during Avengers Doomsday. There's already so much stuff going on during the plot with the X-Men that they've already announced that it just makes sense that they just save some characters, some really big characters, for Secret Wars so that they can split both of the movies and they feel distinctly different, even though technically it's like a part 1 and a part 2 kind of movie, the same way they did with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. You remember, the original title for Avengers Endgame was just Infinity War Part 2. This is kind of the same thing they're doing with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Also one of the reasons why they're filming the movies back to back. So what'll likely happen after Secret Wars is that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine will just wind up staying inside the MCU as they recreate it. We've all talked about the soft reboot going into Marvel Phase 7. Like, they'll use Secret Wars to explain why everybody winds up on the same Earth living together, and everybody thinks that they've always lived together. It won't be weird. Ryan Reynolds has also addressed this too. What it sounds like, both he and Hugh Jackman will mostly be showing up in other people's movies. They won't do a lot of direct sequels, but eventually they'll probably do a direct Deadpool sequel. But at least for the next couple of years, you just see them popping up in other people's movies. Ryan Reynolds said the reason for this isn't so much money because they do get paid more for their solo movies. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and let me know what other movies you want to see Marvel use Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in. I feel like they still need to pay off a bigger version of Hulk vs. Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine. But there's a bunch of stuff coming up. I just did a brand new Avengers Doomsday video. Click here for that and click here for all my other new Marvel videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.